In the Cherokee Nation v. Georgia court case in 1830 and 1831, the radical encounters and influences of that time period and time periods beforehand were exemplified. From the first European encounters, natives were subjugated by Christopher Columbus, Hernando de Soto, and other conquistadors, explorers, and missionaries. One of the events spawned by this cruelty was a Trail of Tears. This forcible removal of Cherokees was delayed by the Cherokee Nation v. Georgia court case, better known as the first civil rights case in American history. It all goes back to 1539 when a conquistador named Hernando de Soto landed in America with the hopes of finding riches, but instead found problems most early European settlements faced as well: starvation, desperation, and a tendency towards cruelty. De Soto treated the natives as many conquistadors did, brutally killing and dismembering them if they did not obey their wishes. The English colonists had a similar precarious relationship with the natives. Throughout the American Revolution and the early years of being an independent nation, Native Americans were doing their best to retain their land and culture in the face of a rapidly expanding new country. Some tribes turned to warfare, while others, like the Cherokee, attempted cultural assimilation. These tribes were known as the Five Civilized Tribes, and it included the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes. These tribes, especially the Cherokee, had laws and governed their lives as if they were white citizens. The Cherokee held slaves, owned plantations, and as a result were officially recognized by the United States federal government as a sovereign nation. As a result, Native Americans managed to preserve their assets prior to the reign of Andrew Jackson. In the 1820s, Andrew Jackson's role as a political leader began to take shape. Jackson was a man from humble beginnings, no money and no family, who made his way through law school and into the political office in Tennessee. Truly the embodiment of the American dream. Because of this, he became known as the President of the Common Man. However, this was not all he was known for. He was notorious for being an Indian hunter as well as a duelist. He was unconventional, to say the least, as one might expect from a frontiersman and war hero such as himself. Jackson's strong sense of nationalism and desire for more land became evident during the legal encounters with the Cherokee Indians. In the early 1830s, Georgia told the Cherokee Nation to evacuate their lands in order to allow for westward expansion. I witnessed the execution of the most brutal order in the history of American warfare. I saw the helpless Cherokees arrested and dragged from their homes and driven at the bayonet point into the stockades. And in the chill of a drizzling rain on an October morning, I saw them loaded like cattle or sheep into 645 wagons and headed for the west. However, the Cherokees would not accept that. They brought Georgia all the way to the Supreme Court. By presenting their case based on their history on those lands, the Chief Justice, John Marshall, ruled in favor of the Indians and guaranteed their land. In 1831, Andrew Jackson abused his presidential power by overruling the Supreme Court's decision and passed an order for the Cherokee Nation to abandon their lands. My friends, circumstances render it impossible that you can flourish in the midst of a civilized community. You have but one remedy within your reach, and that is to remove to the west. And the sooner you do this, the sooner you will commence your career of improvement and prosperity.
Just try to understand what was motivating them, the context of their times, not to excuse it, but just to have a better understanding of it. We would hope, wouldn't we, that 200 years from now when people look back at us, they will say, well, why didn't they see it the way we see it? You know, what fools they were, what jerks they were, you know. But rather understand the limitations under which we operate and how our own personal motives can sometimes be so powerful that we don't necessarily do the moral or appropriate thing, but we do what we convince ourselves is right. And he got a lot of support from the nation on this for sure. There were critics, but not that many. It's too bad, but that is the way it was. They just don't see the things that we see. They do not hear what the Cherokee people are saying to them in the clearest terms. Beautiful English, you know, drawing on American values and principles and pushing this in their faces and saying, you know, this is who you say you are, so live up to your own values. And yet they're somehow able to completely, you know, diss that stuff and not see what we can see and the problems in their position.
Initially, the Cherokees did not take this threat seriously and continued living their lives. But when American forces showed up with winter approaching and told them to pack and leave their homes for Indian territory in Oklahoma, the Cherokees were ill-prepared and devastated. As a result of the harsh weather, starvation, disease, and Jackson's pure negligence for human life and property, the Cherokees' path to a new land was named the Trail of Tears. This movement of a whole race was genocidal behavior, similar to dictators in the past, such as Adolf Hitler trying to destroy an entire culture. Professor Sherry Smith from Southern Methodist University described this act as cultural genocide.
The Trail of Tears, if it weren't so tragic, it's almost funny how terribly it was carried out. The Cherokee Indians didn't believe that it was going to happen. And so they carried on just as though they were going to stay there in Georgia forever. So when the state of Georgia starts to gather troops to get ready to effect removal, they start putting up notices everywhere, and still the Cherokees don't get ready. And they're a bit confounded, the white Georgians. Why aren't these people getting ready? You know, what are they doing? What are they thinking? And they don't really have a plan to deal with the fact that the folks aren't getting ready the way that they expected them to. So they're hastily rounding people up. Some of the descriptions of rounding the people up indicate that people are literally sitting down to the table to eat a meal, cooking food. They planted crops so that when white settlers move in to take over these homesteads, they find food on the table.
The Trail of Tears. Well, my ancestors were on that trail, so it's a very sensitive subject for a lot of people that are Cherokee. Their land was taken from them and forced into Oklahoma. President Jackson wasn't having any of that, so the ones that remained, they rounded them up and put them in camps and eventually marched them all the way across from Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, to Oklahoma. And my ancestor was actually in that last detachment. He forced the issue and forced the military to move the Cherokee people out. So a lot of people are very, very bitter about it, but, you know, still that they shouldn't be. It's the, you know, it was the sign of the time.
Today, the U.S. government has created several benefits for citizens of Cherokee descent and other natives in an attempt to make up for the cruel way in which they were treated in the past. There are academic scholarships that are available to people who can trace their genealogy back to the Cherokees. Another benefit given to natives is the control of reservation casinos. They produce incredible amounts of revenue and allow a source of financial stability. The Trail of Tears National Historic Trail was founded to recognize the struggles the Cherokees faced on their journey westward, as it has 2,200 miles of trail and water routes and it spans over 9 states. In American history, we tend to overlook the horrific events those from the past witnessed for us to attain our goals. We justify the genocidal conquest that this country was founded upon in the name of destiny. These events weren't simply a disregard for sovereignty, but also a disregard for human dignity. By dragging innocent people from their homes who even tried to assimilate to our culture, the United States showed the world what we are truly capable of. Later on, we continue that grim reputation with slavery and other dark aspects of history, such as Japanese internment camps. These darker parts of history are difficult to learn about, but by remembering and respecting the struggles of others, we can prevent future disasters from happening. The Cherokee Nation v. Georgia case is not taught in schools as the federal injustice it was, but rather as a necessary side effect to expand the United States economy. By exposing students to this case, we can shed light on race relations today and better understand current events and how to fix issues in our modern society.
The things that are taken from them in this era as a part of removal are almost impossible to put a value on. So how could the federal government try to compensate them for that, right? Again, for the lives lost, for the homes that were created and communities that were created that then get dispersed as they're pushed away, right? I mean, you really can't put a value on that, and it seems to me that it would be very difficult for the federal government to figure out how to compensate